Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. We live in a very fortunate time. Even the least expensive recording gear today is capable of incredibly high quality results. But there's a catch. To get those incredibly high quality results from your gear, you need to know how to get the most out of it. Today, I've got 6 easy and affordable tips for you that will help you get more from what you already have. Now, our first tip sounds pretty nerdy, and it certainly can be, but it's essential. And that's to learn your gear. Take each piece of your gear or software and learn as much as you can about it. The features, how it's meant to be used, how people are actually using it, which may in fact be different from how the manufacturer envisioned it. Study the manual. Today's gear and software is capable of so much and has so many features, and few of us really take advantage of all that our gear can do. A big part of what I do in my job is constantly and quickly learning a steady stream of new products, and I'll let you in on the secret of how I do that. When I get a new piece of gear or software, the first thing I do is plug it in or launch it. I see what I can figure out just by trying the product, flipping the switches, turning the knobs. Then I get online and learn as much as I can. And honestly, my first stop is always Sweetwater.com, both the product page and our SweetCare tech support. After I've explored there, I go to the manufacturer website. Then I might look around for videos on the product, although I'm usually creating the very first video that comes out. Then I sit down with the manual and put in study time, and also sit down and use the product with the manual in hand, going through the features and the settings. If there are presets, I'll go through those and study what the preset designer did to get a particular sound or effect. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, and it is, but it's also a lot of fun. By the time I'm done, I'm confident that I've got a good grip on that piece of gear or software. Remember, you bought that piece of gear or software for a reason. Thoroughly understanding it is vital if you want to get the most from your investment. Number 2 on our list is improve your room's acoustics. There's just no way around it. You'll never get the most out of your gear if you can't accurately hear what your gear is doing. And the weak link in the chain is almost always your room's acoustics. Let's face it, most bedrooms, living rooms, dens, apartments, basements, garages, they simply weren't designed to be spaces for recording audio. There are 2 aspects to room acoustics. One is soundproofing, which means keeping the sound from escaping out of the room. And honestly, that's a tough one to manage without a serious remodel or construction. So for our purposes here, let's focus on the second aspect, which is controlling the influence of the room on your sound. You do this by breaking up reflections and resonances caused by sound bouncing around in the room. Now, if you can afford to buy an acoustic treatment kit or products for your room, that's excellent, ideal in fact. Check out solutions from Auralex, Prime Acoustics, Acoustical Fulfillment, Ultimate Acoustics, and more at Sweetwater.com. But even if you can't afford to buy absorbers, diffusers, and bass traps, there's still a lot you can do using things you'll have around the house. Remember, the key is to break up flat surfaces that are reflecting sound, and this means walls, windows, doors, the ceiling, and the floor. The idea is you don't want sound coming out of your monitors or sound sources, bouncing off a surface or surfaces, and then hitting your ears. You also don't want sound reflecting back and forth between parallel surfaces, such as 2 walls. So you want to do anything you can to break up those reflection points. Wall hangings, dense curtains, books on shelves, and so on. I recently had to work in an untreated room, and fortunately there were a ton of pillows around the house. I scattered them about and stacked them up in the room, and it made a huge difference. You can also get some mic stands or chairs or whatever and drape duvets or comforters over them. Soft and dense materials are going to work great for soaking up reflections. Large pieces of furniture can also help, such as a cushy sofa or chair or a bed mattress. And if you've got a closet in the room full of clothes, open the door up. That'll provide some great absorption as well. For recording, try to use microphones with tight polar patterns to reject sound, or invest in a reflection filter like those from SC Electronics, Aston Microphones, Prime Acoustic, or Auralex. Number 3 on our list of tips is ergonomics. Maybe it's an obvious concept, but to get the most out of your gear, you need to be able to easily use that gear. And there are 2 aspects again to this. The first is, how quickly can you get into action? For example, how many switches do you need to turn on before you can start to work? How many cables do you have to get out and run? How long does it take to find and set up the microphone and the mic stand you want to use? Where's the nearest guitar tuner or guitar pick? For most of us, time in the studio is a precious commodity, and inspiration and motivation can be easily lost if it takes too long to start work. The more you can have set up and ready to go, and the fewer steps you have to take to get to work, the better. So I try to keep guitars, mics, cables, and stands easily at hand, and pretty much ready to go at a moment's notice. As much as possible, things stay set up and plugged in. I have guitar tuners and picks in several handy locations so I can instantly grab them without digging through a drawer or a guitar case. My headphones are on hooks on the side of my workstation right at hand. Now, my audio interface has the mic inputs on the back, and I hate climbing behind racks to plug in cables. It's a huge waste of time. So I invested in an XLR patch bay that brings those connections out to the front, which is super handy. In this room we're in right now, I leave the mic cables plugged into the back of my Universal Audio Apollo interface. They're neatly coiled and ready to go. Now, if you're a DAW user, you can speed things up by creating templates you can open up quickly for your sessions. Using a template with the instruments, plugins, and routings you always use set up ready to go is so much faster than creating each session from scratch. The second part of this is where the true ergonomics come in, meaning placing the gear you need close at hand. Try this. Sit down at your desk or workstation. How far do you have to move to reach the volume knob on your audio interface? Do you have to get down on the floor to adjust the mic preamp gain? What you want to do is place the gear you need to touch right within easy reach of your chair. The more you can minimize movement to reach things, the more efficient you can be. Plus, the bonus is you stay in the monitoring sweet spot much more of the time, which makes adjustments easier to hear. Number 4 on our list is to properly place your monitors. The rule of thumb is to set your monitors up in an equilateral triangle, meaning the distance between the two monitors is the same as the distance from each monitor to your listening position. But there's more to it than that. Ideally, the monitors will be symmetrical between the two side walls. And you don't want your monitors tight up against a wall, as this messes with the low end response. Even worse is placing a monitor in a corner where the two walls meet. So if possible, place your monitors 3 feet or more away from the nearest wall. Now if you can't do this, which many of us can't in small rooms, get them as far away from the wall as you can. And some monitors offer switches on the back panel to compensate the frequency response if you do have to place them near a wall or in a corner. I also recommend lifting your monitors up off the desk surface, which can cause resonances and reflections, as well as isolating them from their stand or the desk. RAB, Prime Acoustic, ISO Acoustics, Auralex, and more offer monitor isolation solutions. Personally, I use ISO Acoustic stands in my home studio for my monitors, and I've got RAB isolators underneath the large Focal monitors behind me. I like to place my monitors with the tweeters aimed slightly above ear level and focused slightly behind my head. I don't like the tweeters blowing straight into my ears. Depending on how your monitors are designed, they can usually be placed either with a vertical orientation where the tweeter is above the woofer, or on their sides with the tweeter beside the woofer, in which case the tweeters could either be on the inside or the outside of your listening triangle. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations for this, but also experiment to find the best position, vertical or horizontal, that gives you the best stereo imaging. Number 5 is to learn good mic technique. This means placing the microphone properly on each source. The best sounding place on a guitar speaker cabinet or a drum, for example. But also take advantage of the features of your mics. The mic's polar patterns or directionality can help you control noise bleed and room ambience. Getting closer up with a directional mic will increase proximity effect, meaning you get more bass, but sometimes at the expense of distortion. A mic may have filters for controlling low frequency rumble and noise pickup. Spend some time learning your mics, what they do, how each one sounds, what it's best for, and how you can use its features. Experiment as much as possible. Does the mic sound best straight on, or maybe you need to turn it at a slight angle? How can you prevent P-pops on vocals? Using microphones is truly an art form, and you learn by checking out what other people are doing, but more importantly by trying things yourself to see what works for you. Remember our first point at the beginning of this video about learning your gear. It's especially critical with microphones. Number 6, the last item on our list, is arguably our most important, and that's to use your ears. I mean, that sounds obvious, right? But in today's screen-oriented world, we've all become very visually oriented. A surprising number of people I see are seemingly mixing with their eyes because something looks right on the screen, or they're placing a microphone because it looks like a photo they saw of some session. That's all well and good, but ultimately, how an automation curve looks in a DAW, how the waveform displays, where a mic is located, or whatever is really irrelevant. What matters is the sound. So focus your ears and downplay what your eyes tell you. You might even set things up so that you're primarily working without looking at your screen. A hardware control surface for your DAW makes this much easier to achieve. But beyond this, take a tip from the late great Bruce Swedien, one of the greatest recording engineers who ever lived. Learn what things sound like. Get out and hear a real acoustic piano or grand piano. What does each component in a drum kit really sound like? Stand in front of a Leslie rotating speaker or a stack of Marshalls driven by a Les Paul. Then expand on those oral images by listening to great recordings in a wide variety of genres, not just the genre you work in. Remember, musicians go through ear training courses in school. A recording engineer should do the same sort of work, training their ears. Your job as a recording engineer is to capture and create great sound, and you can't do that without getting the most out of your most essential tool, your ears. So there you have it. 6 easy tips for getting the most from your gear in your studio. And guess what? You can apply all 6 of these tips without spending a penny. The side bonus is that truly knowing your gear in your studio and getting the most out of it makes it so much easier to choose new gear you want to add or finding those pieces of gear that will most benefit from an upgrade. But my recommendation is, before you upgrade or look for something new, really get to know how to get the most from what you already have. You won't regret it because the payoff will be better sound, more efficient sessions, and faster, easier workflow, all of which frees you up to be more creative and more productive, and that's a huge win in my mind. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click here for more videos like this, or start at sweetwater.com for all your music instrument and pro audio needs.